What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today we're reacting and grading the latest 2023 mock draft from Bleacher Report. So excited to bring this video your way. Hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe if you're new and looking for more football coverage. And of course, leave me your thoughts down below. Who goes too high? Who falls too low? Who's your favorite team? Did you like the pick that BR gave your squad? And also, before we get started, again, shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. My affiliate links are down below in the description if you're looking to add another sports book into your repertoire, your arsenal, or if you're new to sports betting and looking for your first sports book, I highly encourage BetUS. I got a great site and a lot of different stuff that you can look at and a lot of different markets to explore, not only football, but plenty of others. And of course, if you're here, you like the NFL drafts, some great draft props that you could check out as well. So definitely check out those links down below in the description. All right, let's start looking at this Bleacher Report latest mock draft, and it starts with Bryce Young going to Carolina. We're seeing a whole lot of these mocks switch to that after the betting market switched. And whether it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, it's going to be an A pick for me. It'd probably be an A+ if it's Young, to me personally, just because that's who I would take. But Carolina, whoever they take here, they need to get this rebuild on the road. And you give up DJ Moore and all those draft picks, you got to make the best decision here. And this pick is going to be huge for Scott Fitterer and Frank Reich and everyone a part of that decision-making process. And Dave Tepper there's going to be a lot of consequences here if this does not work out. But the reason I'd go Bryce Young here is, I know the size is a problem, but great footwork, great feel for the pocket, great escapability, plus level accuracy and processing, and a solid enough arm. I think he's got the highest floor, and he's got all the traits you need to build around. And a quarterback, he's just not 6'4" and 220 pounds. But if he was, I think we'd be talking about him as like a Trevor Lawrence level prospect. So despite the size and the weight concerns that may be there and how that correlates to durability, I think Bryce Young's game, every other area, is the best in this class pretty much. Maybe not the best, but one of the best in this class. And the reason I make that caveat here is CJ Stroud. I do think Stroud is a little bit more accurate, maybe a little bit better of a processor, but he also had the luxury of playing with, an offensive line that has 3 guys going to the top 64 this year. The best wide receiver in the country in Marvin Harrison Jr., who would be the first wide receiver off the board this year. A great head coach in Ryan Day. Meanwhile, Young is coming from an Alabama team that was weaker than most Alabama rosters. So I think they're just coming from different situations, and I did weigh that into my evaluation. But Stroud to Houston and that Bobby Slowick, Shanahan offense, I think would be an awesome fit. I've sung the praises of this landing spot for Stroud plenty of times already now. But his accuracy and his decision-making in an offense that schemes people open with the best of them, that's big. And then also, if you're going to worry about the size with Bryce Young, there are a fair amount of passes over the middle of the field. 3-step drops, and you're trying to hit that slant to Brandon Ayuk. Young at 5'10" may see more of those passes batted down, but Stroud at 6'2", 6'3", 215. I'm not really as worried about it. And I do think that he, after the Georgia game, understands that he needs to use his legs more. So we didn't get to see a whole lot of it at Ohio State until that Georgia game, but I think he's kind of had a light or a switch go off in his head where it's like, that makes me that much more dynamic and makes me that much better of a quarterback. Colts move up and trade places with Arizona. They take Anthony Richardson. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I've also heard they're big on Levis, but that might just be a smokescreen, just trying to bait somebody into moving up to 3, so that way they take Levis, and then the Colts can stand pat and take AR. But it's smokescreen season, so it's hard to tell what's true and what's not. But Richardson to Indianapolis, this gives them their quarterback of the future, or at least on paper their quarterback of the future. And if Richardson hits his upside, it could be Indianapolis and Jacksonville for years to come, going back and forth, trying to dominate the AFC South. I think the Colts have a roster that you could put around Richardson and be pretty competitive right away. But also you have Gardner Minshew there, so you could sit Richardson if you feel like that's what's best for him. I just rather see him play right away, get some more starting experience, get a feel for the game at a higher level, and you just use his legs more. And that will buy him time to grow as a passer. Pick number 4, Arizona. They're going to stick and pick and take Will Anderson. This, I think, should be the pick. In the Connor Rogers mock, we talked about Tyree Wilson, and maybe he's the first defender off the board. I think it should be Will Anderson. Great ability to play with both speed, bend, but also power. To me, he's just about as complete as it gets, honestly. And he had all the production they did in college, basically playing 4-tech on the inside of offensive tackle shoulders. What happens when you move him out wide? I think he gets that much better. And I think he plays bigger than 245, which is what he played at Alabama. He's already bulked up. He's at like 253 now after the combine. So if he adds even just a little bit more strength in his profile, then I have absolutely no concerns about him against the run. And yeah, I'm looking at Arizona and a team that needs a blue chip defensive player. They lost Byron Murphy, they lost Zach Allen, and now Budda Baker's requested a trade. Like, this team is slowly losing its identity on that side of the ball. I think Will Anderson kind of gives you the chance to reclaim a piece that could be the future identifying factor for that defense long term. Then at pick number 5, Seahawks take Tyree Wilson. This is one that seems to be super polarizing for Seahawks fans. I thought maybe the Chris Sims rankings and having Tyree Wilson and that, his rant about this no doubt has to be the number 1 guy off the board. This has to be the first defender, the first edge rusher taken. Thought I was like, okay, well, I wonder, see how much that skews maybe people's perception of Wilson. But it feels like it hasn't changed a whole lot, which, good on people for sticking to their opinion. But getting back on track here, I think he could play either inside or out. Draymond Jones is 6'3", 280, so 6'6", 280, 285. I think that works on the inside. And having his 86-inch wingspan, working into the chest of guards who typically have shorter arms, that feels like a mismatch you can exploit. But they also haven't addressed edge yet. And if you feel like you can fix up his hand placement, he already took strides in the right direction and played with strength so well last year that we saw the pass rush production kind of finally hit its stride. But you clean up the hand usage and you might have something here. And Darrell Taylor, to me, just really hasn't worked out. Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, they're both lighter. So adding someone who's 280 plus pounds on the edge kind of gives you a different frame. And I think wherever he plays, you're getting a pretty good run defender right away, which is big for Seattle's defense. Next, the Lions are going to take Devon Witherspoon. This fit is fantastic. Immediate impact, and he's a great fit for that man press scheme that Aaron Glenn wants to run. But I think whatever coverage you throw at Witherspoon, he'll be a good fit for it. And, obviously they just traded Jeff Okudah. So Witherspoon plus Mosley on the outside. Then you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson kind of playing strong safety, Cam Sutton playing the nickel, and of course you can move all those pieces around. That is a secondary that I absolutely adore. So I'd love if Detroit made this selection. Jalen Carter or Devon Witherspoon, the way the board's played out, would be the direction I would go here. All right, to pick 7, Raiders take Christian Gonzalez. I also love this addition, and maybe something that you see this upcoming weekend. But some of the same stuff I said about Witherspoon, scheme versatility is truly here with Gonzalez, and the Raiders just need cornerback bad. They got Nate Hobbs, and I like Nate Hobbs, but that's about it. And in a division like the AFC West, you just got to have more perimeter talent, more secondary talent in and of itself. I think Gonzalez brings that upside. I do think he comes with a relatively high floor just because from an athletic standpoint, there are few people who move like Christian Gonzalez. Plus 6'2", solid arm length, an insane vertical and broad jump. He plays with that explosiveness. There's a lot to like about Gonzalez. And, I think also going from Colorado to Oregon, it was great to see him take a step forward in regards to ball production. Those ball skills felt like he was tracking the ball better. So a guy that's still getting better, which has got to be exciting if you're a Raiders fan and if this were to be the pick. All right, on to number 8, the Falcons take Myles Murphy. I'm actually, a little surprised, but I guess the last Bleacher Report mock we reacted to, Murphy went 6, I think, to the Lions. My memory holds. Bleacher Report definitely high on Myles Murphy. And look, the guy can play with power, 6'5", 270 pounds. It's not quite Trayvon Walker, frame and athleticism, but Myles Murphy is not too far off. So if all those things led to Walker going 1, even if Myles Murphy's a half step to a step down, there still could be enough there to have a team go like, this guy belongs in the top 10. And I think with Atlanta, he could start right away. But I'd love to see him go to, and this is where maybe my mocks are skewing my judgment here, but if he falls later into the first round and gets to go to a contender where he doesn't have to play right away, or maybe can just be used on rundowns only, I think that's best for him to buy him some time to grow as a pass rusher because outside of his power, he really doesn't have anything else he can win with. Needs to learn a full moveset and needs to learn how to, pass rush plan against an offensive lineman. So work to be done, but, for the Falcons, you got to address edge. And if they think Murphy and his athleticism is the best pick here at 8, I don't hate it whatsoever. Then at 9, let's go with the Chicago Bears taking Jalen Carter. My best defensive fits video, if you saw it, this one's kind of hard to deny because for, 4 months ago, let's just say, we're saying, the Bears got to stay in the top 4 so that way they can get Anderson or Carter because they need that blue chipper. And, especially if it's Carter, that's a perfect 3-tack for Matt Eberflus defense. Well, there's certainly more than a 0% chance that Carter falls away to 9. And Chicago, after getting all those picks and DJ Moore, could still get, in my opinion, the best non-quarterback in this class, focusing solely on what he does on field. And then it's a perfect scheme fit. He is exactly what Matt Eberflus needs in that defense. Disruptor in the pass game, but also really good against the run. So you can play him all 3 downs. And I think by adding Carter to that defense, just like with the Colts, you saw DeForest Buckner get there, and man, it felt like that defensive line took some sizable steps in the right direction. They're still looking to get better there, but if not for DeForest Buckner, I think that weakness looks that much more glaring. And I think adding Jalen Carter, if he lives up to the expectations people have, he'll have that same type of effect in Chicago. Then at pick number 10, the Eagles will take Lukas Van Ness. Yep, this is a selection I love. We've seen it in plenty of other great mocks in the past. This is a perfect Brandon Graham replacement, a guy that wins with power. He's also a little bit young, too, redshirt sophomore, coming out of Iowa. So a lot of his work on the inside, it's amazing that Iowa, they play those old guys on the edge, and that's their way of doing business. It's very old school, and I can kind of tip my cap to doing it. It's not the way I would do business. Best players see the field, but I'm not here to talk about Iowa and their starting tendencies when it comes to their football roster. But Van Ness, again, perfect replacement for Brandon Graham. I think you can kind of have him just sit by the wayside and kind of learn behind all those other edge rushers they already have on the roster, which is really good for a young guy. And to me, he kind of seems like the dude who is willing to soak in and is kind of a sponge and is trying to take in as much information as possible. So this would be a great landing spot for him to go and kind of be the mentee to plenty of different mentors on that defensive line in Philadelphia. And also the Eagles just have a great knack of developing these guys. So I like Van Ness right now, and he might only get better if he goes to Philadelphia. Titans take Will Levis. This is another grade the mock where Levis falls out of the top 10. I don't know. He feels like a hot name right now. Maybe it's smokescreen that, Houston likes him. Oh, Indianapolis likes him. But now it's the other AFC South team here in the Tennessee Titans who make this selection. We talked about this in the Rodgers grade the mock, so I won't harp on it too long. But yeah, he's better than Malik Willis as a prospect. Not even close, really, given just the difference in quarterback classes. And I think he could give you a similar baseline of play as Ryan Tannehill, but then you move on from Tannehill and free up a ton of cap space that could be used now or later. So yeah, would love to see this. You clean up his footwork, and I think, with Treylon Burks, Derrick Henry, depends on that offensive line, but I think you can get some solid play out of Will Levis right away. And, with a cheap quarterback, this could be the pathway for the Titans getting back into some serious contention and put themselves towards the top of the AFC South. Texans take Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Yeah, this will depend on how they feel about Robert Woods and if he can play on the outside. But if you think he can, Woods and Nico Collins out wide, and then JSN would really serve as the number one target from the inside. Yeah, I like that fit a ton. Plus, pair him up with CJ Stroud. You already know that chemistry's there. We're seeing that become, more and more of a theme in the NFL nowadays. Like Hollywood Brown, obviously going to, Arizona last NFL draft, partner up with Kyler Murray once again. There were even talks about, the Steelers should draft Jordan Addison and see what him and Kenny Pickett can do. And I'm fine with that if the Steelers do go in that route. But we could see that kind of same thing play out here. Stroud with JSN, keep his number one target for when he was healthy from Ohio State. Come with him to Houston, and to me, he'd be that number one volume guy right away, and I think he can be, even if he is slot only. But 6.57 3-cone is that's the number to know for JSN because you see it on tape. His explosiveness out of breaks is second to none to anybody in this class, and then also 6'1", 200. He plays big, he plays physical. He's strong, so he's got good yak upside at the next level as well. All right, on to pick 13. No surprise here. Jets take a tackle. It's Peter Skoronski. This one's a little more interesting. And, depending on what they want to do, and if Connor McGovern's gone, Skoro, for short, didn't play a whole lot of center at college, but that is where Northwestern recruited him to play. So could he play center right away? I guess you can't rule it out. That would be a little fun to see. And with his movement skills, that'd be fun. But really, I guess you would make this pick in mind saying, hey, short arms, but we think he can work at tackle still. And we're going to, navigate through what we're going to do with Becton and Dwayne Brown and Max Mitchell. And, however they want to play that out, adding Skoronski into the mix solidifies that you're going to have a solid tackle tandem somewhere in the mix. Also, Lincoln Tomlinson, too, another point I want to mention here, wasn't really great that first year in that contract in New York. And if he doesn't take a step forward this year, then he becomes a very easy cut next offseason. So Skoronski could also be your future Lincoln Tomlinson replacement as well. On to pick 14, Joey Porter Jr. does make a lot of sense to go to New England. Kind of fits that old school Belichick man press guy, but also if New England plays more zone like they have the last couple seasons, cover 2-4-6, I think Joey Porter is a natural add to that. And again, if you saw my best defensive fits, you already know I like this addition. Guy with long arms, plays with that length, wasn't tested a whole lot at the catch point, which to me shows a lot of respect for his game at the next level, and just got better year over year at Penn State. And I want to hop on that continuation curve. I want to see that growth brought on to the next level. And I think Bill Belichick and his son Steve, I think that's the type of environment and that's the type of coaching staff that can get even more out of Joey Porter Jr. And the Patriots secondary has been good enough the last couple of years, but I wonder what happens if they got a true shutdown guy. And with Porter Jr.'s potential, I think he could be that dude, and I wonder how crazy good that defense could get. Then we get to pick 15, the Green Bay Packers taking Michael Mayer. Yeah, this this would make sense. I think they'd probably go Kincaid, honestly. But Mayer does bring more blocking upside, so maybe that's the preference for Matt LaFleur. I just don't think they're going to go pass catcher round one. I know I did JSN this past weekend on my mock, but I think Gutekunst is going to stick to his guns. As much as it would be interesting to add a pass catcher and try to improve that environment around Jordan Love, I think they have their way of doing business, and whoever's under center, that's not going to affect that process for them. And then you can tap into a deep tight end class on day 2 or something thereabouts. But I do like the fit for Michael Mayer, and it was one that we saw a ton in mock drafts like 6 months ago. Undeniable over the middle of the field upside as a receiver. Great contested catch ability. Might be the best contested catch pass catcher, wide receiver, tight end in this draft class. And he's also, I think, an underrated yards after the catch guy. Like, he is a prototypical built tight end, and he plays with power, and he's an absolute tank to bring down. So I think he does bring some upside there. And again, if LaFleur is looking for a solid blocker, maybe that's enough validation to go Mayer over Kincaid. Washington has Paris Johnson Jr. fall right into their lap, and this would be one of the biggest steals, in my opinion, from the round one. Y'all already know Paris Johnson Jr. is my OT1. This would be, your future Charles Leno replacement. I almost wonder if they would just move on from Leno right away, or if they just keep him around for swing tackle purposes. He also could play guard, and he's had interviews where he's like, I'm fine playing guard. So you could Tyler Smith this, right? You put Paris Johnson Jr. at left guard, upgrade over Andrew Norwell, and then when it feels like Charles Leno's really hit a wall and he can't be a starting player anymore, Paris Johnson Jr. just slides over and resumes where he was last year at Ohio State playing left tackle. I could totally see that playing out, and this would just be an absolute steal. To me, Paris Johnson Jr. should go anywhere from pick 9 to 13. That's kind of where I see him at. So to get him at 16, really, really good value once again. Steelers get Broderick Jones. I talked about this in the Connor Rogers mock, so I'll be quick. But I think this is the tackle they prefer. And in a perfect world, the Steelers would get Paris Johnson for all the same reasons I just, sung the praises of Washington, get him at 16. But if it's Broderick Jones, this is definitely an upside play. Could be, a little slow to start just because he is raw as a pass protector, and there's some things that you need to clean up with his hands and his head. But because he just drops like the crown of the helmet way too much when guys get into his chest. And again, part of that is just his hands go out too wide. But those are correctable. So if they make those adjustments quick enough and he kind of has it fully come into his muscle memory, maybe he's better right away than I would expect, but I think there's going to be some growing pains early on. But really, once you get into year 2 and 3 of this contract, he has the potential to be more than a plus level starting left tackle, has the size, has the strength, has the athleticism for that matter. So he's just a guy that needs to get more reps, and Pittsburgh is in a spot where they can give him that. You move Dan Moore over to right tackle, or he just plays swing tackle. I don't know if Dan Moore can beat out Chukwuma Okorafor at this point at right tackle, but maybe he could. If not, he just becomes a solid swing tackle. So this would be a fit that makes a lot of sense for Pittsburgh, and I think, again, he's the tackle they're looking for, but I do think there'd be some growing pains early on, so that could be a little problematic for Steelers fans. Lions then take Quentin Johnston. This is a really fun fit to think about, but with them bringing back Marvin Jones, I think they'll pass, and they'll maybe opt for someone who's a true possession guy, like a Michael Wilson round 2, or Cedric Tillman if he falls to their lap at 48 or 55. But if they added Quentin Johnston and his over-the-top playmaking ability and that speed plus the 6'3" frame, and you have Jamison Williams and his speed, that opens up the middle of the field a ton. And Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't need any help, but if you give him more space, that guy, I mean, that's a first-round pick right there in fantasy football, in my opinion. But also the yak ability, I'd love to see how Ben Johnson could use him as an underneath threat and get the ball to him in space. And this is where I really love the fit, because I just want to give playmakers to Ben Johnson. I had a mock a couple weeks ago that Lions fans hated, but I gave him Quentin Johnson and Bijan Robinson. I was like, could you just imagine what Ben Johnson could do with those two guys on top of what he already did with the offense last year? That's going to be unfair. But even if it's just Quentin Johnson or it's just Bijan Robinson, which also could be the pick here, I'd love to see what Johnson could do. And by adding Johnston to the mix of, again, Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalif Raymond and Marvin Jones coming back, you got a deep rotation and a team that's going to pass the ball a fair amount. And, it's always good to have that wide receiver depth in case of injuries, and always can rotate them in. Bucks take Nolan Smith. Yeah, I love this. If Smith makes it to 19, this is kind of a hard pick for me to pass on in future mocks, because I think people are going to love the character, and I can see Todd Bowles being like, yep, this is my dude. Shaq Barrett can't play forever, and honestly, I'm worried about what he looks like next year, if I'm being completely transparent. So it could be Nolan Smith and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka pretty much right away as that edge duo. Two twitchy athletes. Tryon-Shoyinka was able to bulk up and add some mass, and I think Nolan Smith could do the same thing. But, I'd probably cap it at 245, 250. Not that I think he's going to lose all of his speed and all of his explosiveness if he, bulks up. But that being said, said, he wins with speed. He wins with that explosiveness, that first step off the line of scrimmage. Wish we could have seen what that skill set looks like, attacking the outside shoulder of tackles. But nevertheless, pairing up that type of athleticism with Tryon Shink on the other side, that's a really fun duo. And then, best case scenario, Shaq Barrett has a couple of years left in his game. And then you have a really awesome trio that you can kind of rotate in snap by snap. On to pick number 20, Seattle takes Deonte Banks. Man, I have cooled on the Seattle drafting corner. I got a lot of pushback from Seahawks fans there, but never say never. I would love to see them add corner. And again, I refer you back to my best defensive hits video coming out earlier this week. Banks would be a really fun add. They did play a variety of coverages there at Maryland, not just man press, even though Banks, you look at his frame and his athleticism and says, oh, this is man press. They played a lot of zone there too, so I feel comfortable with whatever assignment he's given. And he's got the size, he's got the arm length, he's got the athleticism, the type of stuff that John Schneider has coveted in corners. It just comes in the first round, which we really haven't seen Snyder tap into that draft pool yet. First round corners, even second round corners for that matter. But I would love to see that change in a really good corner class. And as much as you could say, hey, it's a deep corner class, wait till day 3, wait till the end of day 2. It's like, well, imagine in a good corner class drafting the cream of the crop. Then that secondary could get crazy. So I could see that spun either way. On to pick number 21, the Chargers take Zay Flowers. Yep, I've mocked this a ton. We've reacted to mocks with this a ton. Adding speed. I mean, most Chargers fans will tell you they need speed at wide receiver, and that's what Zay Flowers brings. Also, just him and Christian Gonzalez glide around the field. It's insane to watch them move. But also, I think you're getting another yak weapon, which will be good. And then I think he can also be that Keenan Allen replacement in another year's time. So I think he brings a lot to the table right away for Los Angeles, but also has a starting role down the line for the Chargers. So I've talked about this pick a lot, so we'll just go ahead and move on because you've already heard me sing the praises of it. Ravens take Bijan Robinson. I like J.K. Dobbins, but at the same time, imagining a backfield that features Bijan, J.K. Dobbins, and Lamar Jackson would be awesome. That would be such a nightmare for defenses to slow down. Oh, and they have OBJ, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews. Whew, that could be deadly. So do I think they could go elsewhere here? Yeah, corner makes a lot of sense. IDL, I'd still love wide receiver. But Bijan is hard to deny. And plus, Dobbins has missed enough time to where having that second back might not be a bad idea anyway. So not one that I've mocked. And, I'm not super in love with it. But at the same time, I understand why you can make the argument why Bijan should be the pick there at 22. Vikings add Brian Brzee. Yeah, we talked about this in the Rodgers grade the mock. They definitely could get better on the interior. And I think Brzee might be a little underweight to play true nose like Kyrus Tonga is, but maybe in passing situations you could kind of do something like that. But also you're probably going to be running 4-man fronts, and I trust Brian Brzee then as that 3 tech in that type of role. This is just kind of an upgrade over Dean Lowry, at least when it comes to his upside. And maybe you want to have Brian Brzee sit for a little bit. Lowry can start some games, and then hopefully Brzee kind of hits his stride and figures it out as a pass rusher. That's the area where he needs to grow the most. But high-end athlete, great frame, former number 1 overall recruit, that type of stuff speaks volumes. And once we get to the back half of the teens and into the 20s, I'm starting to look for Brian Brzee to come off the board pretty quick once we get to April 27th. Then we get to the Jags. 24, they get Darnell Wright, one of the hottest names in the draft, kind of community right now. So if he made it to 24, I'd be pretty shocked, honestly. Maybe it's smokescreen season, and that's what's hyping up his name. But I also just really like the player. Maybe the best anchor of anybody in this class, but also good on his feet. He's no slouch when it comes to being a moving tackle. And for Jacksonville, the worst case scenario for Jacksonville is like you get into the season and you find out Walker Little ain't it, and then you have no answer. Drafting Darnell Wright here solidifies and guarantees that there is an answer if that problem comes to arise. And maybe you could play Little at guard or whatever, but I just like the idea of kind of like what we talked about with Christian Gonzalez and the Falcons, and it's like these two guys, one of them will be our answer at this potential problem spot. So whether it's Little or Wright, I would love to see the Jags just kind of double down on that position and say we are not going to have right tackle be a reason we don't make the playoffs this year. Giants draft Steve Avila. Wow, his first interior offensive lineman off the board. Okay, I've not seen that in a mock, honestly, probably ever. But guard center flexibility, and I wonder where the Giants would play him, right? I don't think he's the best on the move, not that he's terrible, but comparing him to a John Michael Schmidt, Joe Tippmann, Luke Whippler, things like a Cody Mauch even, who could have center flexibility in his future. And maybe that's just his best role at the NFL level, honestly. Yeah, he's not quite the mover like those guys, so I do wonder if he's playing center here, where I typically want a really good athlete and a guy who can move, but I think that's just my biases kicking in. Maybe he's your Josh Azudu upgrade at left guard. But yeah, best pass protector, of the interior offensive line group this year. That's never a bad thing. Make Daniel Jones that much a cleaner of a pocket to work from. And I could see interior offensive line. I just don't know if Avila would be the guy that I would assume the Giants are taking there. So different name, but don't hate it whatsoever. On to pick number 26. Cowboys add Darnell Washington. Cowboys fans, let me know what you think. I've seen mocks where they go tight end, but I don't think any of them have been Darnell Washington. A lot of times it's like Mayer or Kincaid to replace Dalton Schultz. Washington might be a different enough skill set that excites Cowboys fans. You got Ferguson, you got Hendershot there, but adding Darnell Washington and his blocking ability, you line him up next to Terrence Steele, who hopefully is coming back from the injury at 100%. Man, Tony Pollard's going to have some lanes to work with on the right side of the offensive line. Or you flip him over to the left side. And also, I think part of the reason I like this is Dallas is going to have injuries on the offensive line. I would be shocked if they make it through the entire season without somebody missing at least a portion of the season. So Darnell Washington kind of guarantees and gives you a little bit more confidence that, okay, well, Tyler Smith got hurt, so, we're a little thin right now at left tackle. Oh, Terrence Steele went down. Now we got to fix it over here at right tackle, or whatever ends up happening this season. Injuries are obviously impossible to predict, but Darnell Washington kind of alleviates some of the concerns that may come with those injuries. So not a tight end I think that we've seen in any mocks that we've reacted to. So I appreciate Bleacher Report mixing it up. Jordan Addison and the Bills. Yep. Adore this fit. Just as much as I love Addison to the Chargers, I love him going to the Bills. Inside-out versatility, so he could be your Khalil Shakir upgrade right away, and you keep Gabe Davis, or you move on from Gabe Davis and you get another sharp route runner in the mix. I've often called Jordan Addison Stephon Diggs light, and I kind of stand by that. They feel like they play similar, and the frame's even similar to one another. So I would love to have, and we saw so many times the Bills, when Stephon Diggs couldn't win them a game, and he wasn't getting 15 targets a game and wasn't coming down with 8 to 10 catches in a game, that offense, it was rough to watch sometimes. It was like needed Diggs to take over, or you needed Josh Allen to have like 70 plus yards on the ground and a couple touchdowns. It was one or the other. So I think by adding Addison, a guy who naturally is going to get open, I think that opens up that offense a ton. So whether it's inside or out, whatever they're going to do with Gabe Davis, I'd love to see them add Jordan Addison just to add one more guy that can reliably get open and take some of that pressure off Stephon Diggs' shoulders, and hopefully then he starts to get some more one-on-ones, because one-on-one against Diggs is a nightmare for a corner. Cincinnati takes Brian Branch. This is really fun to think about. Mike Hilton last year of his contract. This is kind of a seamless replacement of that. You could also, for year one, just play him at strong safety and let him play that Von Bell role. And if there's a guy to replace Von Bell that I feel confident could do it right away, Brian Branch, considering how big of a Brian Branch fan I am, that would be a name that I'm okay with seeing what it looks like. I think he could do it right away. Such a sure tackler, and you could do so many different things with him in coverage, both man and zone, but he's really good in man. And with how Lou Anarumo mixes up his coverages, really game by game, and honestly, it feels like drive by drive, I love the versatility and the complete skill set that Brian Branch would bring to the table right away for Cincinnati. So that's not a pick that I've mocked, but I do like that fit a ton. Saints take Mazi Smith. Yeah, if Mazi's going round one, I think you get to New Orleans and it's like, yeah, okay, here we go. This could be it. New Orleans, Philadelphia then at 30, and then Kansas City at 31. It's like, okay, these are all real possibilities. And maybe Dallas at 26. I don't want to overlook that one either. The last 3 picks of the first round, I think Mazi could fly off the board. And for the Saints, it's like you lose David Onyemata. Who's going to be that run stopper? Mazi Smith, that's what he's been pretty good at Michigan, kind of gotten better at it year over year. And then with the athleticism, you get excited about what he could be as a pass rusher, and you see moments of it. And he brought it on in big games like Ohio State, but also there were times in some lesser less profiled games and against weaker competition where it's like Mazi Smith should have been better. Like if he could do that against Ohio State, then why isn't he doing that against Wisconsin or whatever? Just throwing out a random example, but. That inconsistency could be a little bit worrisome, but I can see the Saints where they've been pretty good at developing these guys, being like, yeah, we'll be able to get him to, his best version of himself. And then we're going to get a pretty good run defender, which we need, and gives us another pass rusher, because right now it's Cam Jordan, and it's scheduled to be Peyton Turner, and then hands go up, because we don't really know what that third edge rusher is going to look like. And at pick 40, you could address it then and tap into a relatively deep edge group. Eagles take O'Cyrus Torrence. Yep, I have mocked this each of the last 2 weeks, so I love this fit. Plug and play starter at right guard. He is not the most fluid athlete. He's not Peter Skoronski. He's not Cody Mock. I totally hear that, but I don't think he's as bad of an athlete on the move as people want to say that he is. And I get it. He is a huge people-moving guard, so it's easy to say, oh, well, he's big and strong, so he has to be slow. He's not fast. He's not Cam Jurgens, who you drafted in the second round last year. I just don't think if you ask him to go on the move that he's incapable of doing that. So love this fit a ton. Question mark still long term there for right tackle after Lane Johnson, but Osiris Torrance gives you a starter at right guard right away. Cam Jurgens then will be your Jason Kelce replacement in another offseason's time. All right, last pick to react to. Chiefs add Dawand Jones. This would be a little interesting because so many people have comped Dawand Jones to Orlando Brown Jr., who they just moved on from. But that being said, they liked Orlando Brown Jr. enough to make a trade and bring him into the building, and maybe they like that skill set more at right tackle than what they were willing to pay him, and bring in Jawan Taylor, try to get that pass protection upside, and then they're like, hey, well, Jones falls in her lap at 31, kind of get a similar skill set, and now we'll get to play him at right tackle. Maybe. But yeah, you're talking about a dude with pterodactyl wings for arms, super strong, big hands too. And Mahomes moves enough. I'm not saying he's like Lamar Jackson speed or Dustin Fields fast or anything, but kind of like where I talked about with Dawand Jones going to the Bills, maybe Mahomes uses his legs enough to where you have to contain. And same thing with Josh Allen and the Bills if Dawand Jones did land there instead. And maybe that's enough to hide some of the weaknesses with Jones. His footwork's not always great. And I think he'll struggle with leverage against some of those smaller, speedy guys. Naturally going to happen when you're 6'8", right? And also, I think he's a guy that he's 370 something pounds right now. If he got down to 360, I think he improves his balance a ton. And then if you do that, I think then he's warranted a first round pick. Right now, I'm a little iffy on his balance, and sometimes he catches himself leaning out in front. And again, the footwork's not always great. But there's a lot of traits warrant Dawand Jones maybe getting first round consideration. And if you don't think Darian Kennard can be that starting right tackle, Dawand Jones makes a lot of sense for Kansas City. But that is going to do it for my reaction to the latest first round mock from Bleacher Report. I think this is a pretty solid one. They mixed up the order, found some fits I really liked, some that I didn't really like as much, and a couple of head scratchers in there. But I'll give Bleacher Report an 88. I feel like this was a solid mock. Give it a B+, and and they gave us enough to think about here. I'm just not really crazy about Bijan or the Ravens. I think they could go elsewhere. But anyways, you guys have heard my thoughts about this mock draft. Let me hear yours down below in the comment section. Who went too high? Who fell too low? And of course, who's your favorite team? And did you like the pick that BR gave your squad? Whether you liked it, loved it, or hated it, I want to hear why you felt that way down below in the comment section. So again, seriously, leave me your thoughts down below. I respond to every comment, so you will not be wasting your time dropping that comment. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button if you did, and subscribe if you're new to the channel looking for more football coverage in your life. And if you're looking for a new sports book, definitely check out BetUS. Those links are down below in the description of this video. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.